Wow, this feels good. Been a long time since I've been away from this platform. Good evening, viewers, and welcome once again to yet another show, Fridays with Geo Percy. As we all know, we offer this online platform which covers everything from children to culture. As we plan, we look forward to your participation and suggestions. Today, we are going to be bringing two stalwarts from the field of the differently abled. One of them, who's going to be a moderator, Ms. Rukshana Sholapurwala, wears many hats. Consultant to the LD Clinic KM Hospital, and also a course coordinator for Diploma in Special Education, SIS College. She has been in this field for 3.5 decades. She will be introducing the other stalwart, Mrs. Kate Currawalla. Over to you, Rukshana. Please take over.
Thank you, Shamla, for the introduction. Very warm welcome to all the participants or the members of GeoParsi and Parzor Foundation. Today, we are talking about sky is the limit. Before Mrs. Kate Currawalla starts, I would like to say a few words. Right from birth, kids learn new skills at a dazzling rate. And along with those new abilities, they also acquire the confidence to use them. As children get older, that confidence can be as important as the skills themselves. To thrive, kids need to trust in their own capabilities while at the same time knowing that they can handle it if they aren't successful at something. It's by experiencing mastery and rebounding from failure that we develop healthy self-confidence. Today we have a very known personality with us. She is none other than Mrs. Kate Currawalla. Kate Currawalla is the founder president of the Maharashtra Dyslexia Association. She has been working tirelessly since its inception to expand and develop the reach of the association so that children with specific learning disability have access to high quality testing, assessment, and remediation to ensure access to an appropriate education within the mainstream system. Kate's energetic determination and unflagging attitude has resulted in the association's expansion from tiny office in North Mumbai to 4 centers across the city. Her sense of enterprise and perseverance has resulted in several fruitful tie-ups for the association in the areas of training and publication. A graduate of arts from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, and a PG diploma in mass communication, Kate has worked as a freelance journalist and short film maker. She was regular contributor to several reputed media channels, including the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation and Doordarshan. In 2003, she was elected a Fellow of the renowned Ashoka Innovators for the Public, a Washington-based foundation that promotes innovative entrepreneurship in the voluntary sector worldwide. She has served on the Global Partners Subcommittee of the International Dyslexia Association. I welcome you, Kate, on the forum, and I request you to please start with your presentation.
Thank you, Rukshana, for that very generous introduction, and a big thank you to GeoParsi and the Paso Foundation for having me here today. Uh, it's I have to admit today I am going to be talking not as an educationist or somebody in the field of learning disabilities, but rather as a parent, because children and their ambitions, their aspirations is something that is really very close to my heart. And that is why I was quite delighted to be asked to give this talk. Um, in India, especially, and I'm sure in every part of the world, the what children are, what aspirations they have, what ambitions they have to for adulthood, and what aspirations their parents have for them are also determined by the education system and the social system in which they grow up. And in India, that can be really very challenging. And that is why everybody is always talking about, oh, if you don't get 96% in this or 97% in that, you won't be able to get into a college, you won't be able to do the things, the courses that you want to. And that is why I particularly think it is important to sometimes step back and take a look at what these aspirations are and how to achieve them, especially if you are not one of the so called toppers, people who get consistently 95% and above. So, this talk is really about uh, what does what does life and adulthood hold for everybody, and apart from becoming a very successful, becoming very successful at your job or career, and uh, it's also the result of a philosophy that a lot of us have developed over the course of parenting, uh, and dealing with situations which at that time were extremely challenging, but also being torn between gut feeling and sometimes the pressures that one faces from the situation or from the milieu in which uh, our children are studying. So this is more of a freewheeling talk about uh, the things that I have learned from my children and from the experiences of the people who have been close to me through that journey. And so I think we will start with uh, just to give you an idea of what we do at the Maharashtra Dyslexia Association. Could we have the next slide, please? I'll just quickly take you through what we do. Over the last 25 years, we have been uh, offering services with the idea of building an ecosystem that supports children who find academics challenging. And the next slide, please. Uh, and next. So our work is divided into four verticals: the advocacy within schools, with government, and also within the social system, raising awareness within society and the general public. Training for teachers, parents, and therapists, clinical and family services, which include counseling, intervention, and assessment, and research. The next slide, please. The most important, as I said, was advocacy, working to build awareness and dispense information about regarding uh, academic difficulties that children may face, not necessarily only dyslexia. And also working with educational institutions and government authorities. The next slide. We have quite a large uh, membership of people who regularly attend our sessions and also take advantage of the many different activities that we have. We have a professional staff of about 20 uh, who are running these services. Yeah. Next slide. And the next, please. So this gives you a kind of overall look at what we do. Now, to get back to our topic, uh, as I said, I won't be talking only about dyslexia. I will be talking about kids who, for many, many different reasons, don't particularly like being in school, don't particularly do well in school, sometimes, even despite their best efforts, really struggle at academics. So let's look at some people we all know of who didn't do well at school. Some very famous people like Charles Schwab, who really struggled. Today, he's a billionaire. The next slide, please. And Winston Churchill, who famously was asked to leave school and had to finish his education, his primary education at least, through um, with a tutor because he just could not settle in at school. And he was sent up, as it was called in those days, for bad behavior. And the next slide. And I'm sure everybody's uh, watched some film of Tom Cruise, but how many of us know how difficult it is for him, even as an actor? And we tend to think of this as a very non academic kind of career. But think about what it takes to go through a script, to memorize lines for a long film. Uh, that's challenging. That's very challenging for somebody who's not terribly good at it. The next slide. Thomas Edison, who says, of course, my father thought I was stupid, but by the time he died, he had 1,093 patents to his name. That's really something. I wonder what his father would have thought then. And the next slide. And this is my favorite. Richard Branson, who has famously said, if I had been good at mathematics, I wouldn't have started an airline. That, I really don't know what he means by that, but maybe that's to be left for another talk. And the next slide. And here are some of our own students and ex-students, perhaps not so famous, not yet, but who have achieved some measure of success and at least got onto the path of onto a career path of their choosing. And their journey really is very, very inspiring because we've all seen Tare Zameen Par, and everybody seems to think that kids who aren't terribly academic or who have academic difficulties are good at art or fine arts or acting or things like that. But what is not very well known is that a lot of these students actually do come into their own once they're out of school. And they shine at very traditional careers too. So amongst our alumni, we have a good uh, a good cohort of dancers and musicians and artists and theater people, but we also do have business people, web designers, psychologists, people in, one of them is an economics professor, people in HR, some very, very lawyers, so some very, very conventional um, career paths as well. And let's hear what one of them has to say. This is one of our ex-students who.
Hello, my name is Neha. I'm 27 years old and I was diagnosed with dyslexia approximately 20 years ago. So it's been a long time and life has changed 360 degrees. The earliest memory that I have is coming from school 2 to 3 times a week to MDA and sitting and doing these puzzles and quizzes. And the learning was very different from what I learned at school. And little did I realize that all those small things added up to who I am today. Earlier on, I think the medium of education at school was maybe not. Maybe it was one size fits all approach, which clearly was not meant for me. I chose a career in design, which was something so different from what we did in school. It's very hands on. It's very out of the box thinking, and it's a very visual field. Because of I think my earlier perception of me being a dyslexic was I didn't cope well. Maybe it took me a long time to accept it, but when I did, I think I felt very, very liberated. It was a disability for me early on when I was in school, and now I feel that it is one of my superpowers. I think better, I think different from other people, and that's what I have been able to celebrate. So it's been a great, great journey, and I just have one small message for all students out there that I think it's very important for you to invest time and understand what you are good at and what is your interest. Your interest should ideally become your career ahead, and I think that's one key to success. So all the very best. Thank you so much, and take care.
So Neha has been remarkably successful, I have to say. She's a textile designer, and at a very young age, she won a national award for innovation in her field when she developed dyes, textile dyes, for out of industrial waste, and the award was for ecologically friendly innovation. So we're really very proud of her. But when we talk about success, how do we define success? What do we mean when we say a person is successful? I've been using this word a lot up to now, but I really would love to hear from you in the chat box. If you could put down your views on what constitutes success. I'm going to stop for a moment and invite your participation as well in the chat box. Anybody would like
Up
to?
till now, no.
No? So I think that we'll just carry on.
Yeah, you carry on.
Yeah,
In between,
yeah,
they will
yeah.
keep coming.
Yes, yes. And feel free to post your questions. If it's appropriate and possible, we will answer them through the talk. Otherwise, of course, definitely
Yeah,
take
there
up
is
afterwards.
one.
Yeah.
There are two. One is from Nazneen Madan.
Hmm.
Doing what you love as your career is what I
Okay.
see as success.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Then Shana's Kama says being happy and
And
fulfilled.
fulfilled. That's
Shakira says
yes.
be to achieve your dreams.
Hmm.
We should never give up. And
That's a lovely. Yeah.
Adil Doc says happy at what you are doing, follow your passion. Anaga says to be confident. Yazat says success in nations being respected by others. And Riddhi says success is the ability to reach the goals. I think you have got
Yes,
enough to talk
yes,
on
yes,
now.
and quite a few which have taken this
And the
the
last
out of
one
my
says,
sails.
Pervin says, being
Yes,
able to do what you want to be or want to do.
that's those are really wonderful answers. A lot of them, because very conventionally, very often when I talk to hassled parents, could we have the next slide? Uh, Most of them would do define success in very conventional terms as acquiring some kind of professional and social status, recognition, and a certain degree of wealth, financial, as financial success, which to many people is very, very important. And certainly, so not to say that any of this is not important, but as psychologists and social thinkers think of it slightly differently. And I think a lot of the people who are listening here today also think very differently. Interestingly, um, there have been a lot of longitudinal studies to track children from the time they were very young through into adulthood to gather data about all sorts of things from health to schooling and education to a lot of other social parameters. And the next slide will show us uh, what the Frostick Center found as very important factors which were common to successful adults. And that was having good friends, a large circle of friends, or a supportive circle of friends, positive family relations, being loved, self approval, which of course comes from all the above, job satisfaction, financial comfort, being able to provide for yourself and your family adequately, having physical and mental health, spiritual contentment, and an overall sense of meaning to one's life. So I think some of your answers pretty much covered quite a few of these. But we're going to see in the course of the next few this talk, how we can prepare our children for a, for this kind of outcome. And could we have the next slide? One of the important factors, and this I can't emphasize enough for parents of young children, what did not emerge as an important factor at all was academics, an academic record, not reading and spelling, not maths, and certainly not um, a high achievement in marks in school. Next slide. So, how do we build a foundation for our children? How do we help our children prepare for a happy, stable, and successful life? And the foundation for that has to be built at an early age. And there are very many things that we can do uh, to help our kids build for a good future. The first amongst them, and I would say, is nurture hobbies and interests. And this, I think, is very, very important because when you're in school and college, there is so much pressure to focus on studies. Parents are always telling me that their children are wasting time in sports or in extracurricular activities or in music or on the computer or on TV. But I firmly believe that it's the hobbies and interests of children, children with wide ranging hobbies and interests, are the ones who really have a lot to fall back on later on. For one thing, their hobbies will generally allow them to explore what they're really good at, what really interests them. And as so many of you said just now, it's doing what you love, what you have a passion for, which truly makes you happy later on in life. But we have to, all these things, all these passions need support and they need nurturing. They need to be, children don't just need the time to follow them, but also the support of their parents. Another thing is encouraging general knowledge and curiosity in the world around them. And especially in this day and age, there are so many channels to pursue this. I know a lot of parents are very, very wary of what content is available today on media, on social media, as well as the mainstream media. And certainly it's a challenging environment. But those same channels also have a wonderful world of knowledge to offer. Um, and I think we need to strike a balance, but we certainly should not be panning the media altogether. A lot of children who do not enjoy books, and even those who do, certainly get a lot of knowledge from uh, through other means. And I would say movies, television, the mainstream media, as well as, of course, now computers and the World Wide Web are very, very important means for them to get this information. The next slide. We need to, and this is something that a lot of parents who I really respect have done, create opportunities and avenues to develop future interests. Typically, children who struggle at school, as Rukhsana pointed out, their self-esteem takes a hit, and they generally, in many cases, uh, feel that they don't know what they're good at. By the time, especially by the time they reach their mid-teens, if they have really been struggling and facing a lot of challenges, they just don't know what they're really good at or what really interests them, and they're afraid to stick their necks out because they've really taken such a beating so far. So visiting work sites, watching people at work, internship or any kind of work experience opportunity, volunteering at a job, at a place of work, becomes a very, very uh, important and uh, very useful opportunity for them to try their hand at different things. And I can give you several examples of this. One of the things that really stands out for me is one of my colleagues whose son really struggled through school. By the time he passed his 10th standard, he was so disappointed and so discouraged, he didn't want to go to college. So, in exploring things that interested him, one of the things was he used to stay home and watch TV and watch the cookery shows and then experiment with the cuisine. the different cuisines that he was being exposed to. So she made a deal with him to cook for a month, cook dinner, and for them it was really a revelation on both sides, I think, because he really came up with some wonderful menus, and they had some wonderful dinners. I don't think they wanted their cook back after that. uh, but that led to him volunteering, taking up a sort of voluntary work experience, a stint at a restaurant, which frankly involved helping out. He was very young then, he didn't know anything about restauranting. So most of the time, he was just cleaning countertops and mopping the floor. But he got an opportunity to watch chefs at work, to watch how the restaurant ran, to watch how food was prepped and cooked. And when and he also learned how important his job was, because as somebody pointed out to him, hygiene is very, very important in a restaurant. And it's hard work, but you have to do it, somebody has to do it. So he really left uh, that stint with a rich experience of what the world of work is like, how hard it can be even there, and what it is to work your way through that. He did eventually join a culinary school, and and went through several job changes and several career changes. Uh, Today, I think 20 years on, he is a cinematographer. He went into films, but that's a long, long journey. But the one thing that he learned very early on was that he enjoyed doing things with his hands. He enjoyed doing things hands on. And he learned to be ready to work hard at whatever he took up. And that is what has stayed with him and really helped him through all the ups and downs that he's faced so far. And that brings me to the next this, which is identifying strengths and weaknesses, uh, especially the strengths. Through observation, through a counselor, you take on an aptitude test, consult a counselor. But as a parent, if you allow children to follow their interests and their instincts and observe that, that will always give you a very good idea of where their real strengths lie. Another one is building resilience. As Rukshana said, the ability to pick yourself up after a failure, when things don't go too well, uh, to overcome obstacles, to move on through the frustration, work through the frustrations, and move on uh, even when things don't go right. This is another very, very important quality, especially today where we see so much of dependence on drugs, depression, and even suicides amongst young people. Building resilience is one of the best gifts we can give them. Next slide. The next slide. Yeah. And academically, too, there are many things that we need to do with children who, especially young children, who are not so academically inclined. They may appear to be playful, or they may very obviously struggle with academics. But it's important for all of them for us to maintain uh, their motivation. And the best motivation to continue working is to see small successes, to get that recognition for the struggle that they're putting in, for the hard work that they're putting in, and also that the appreciation of uh, successes, no matter how small. And sometimes these successes may be very long in coming and very small indeed. For a child who finds, say, maths really difficult, moving from 4 on 10 to 6 on 10 really takes a lot of work. And if we recognize that struggle and we recognize the achievement for what it is, it motivates them to continue. Teaching time management and organization skills is another very important factor in allowing children to reach their goals. Children who struggle with academics particularly, and the structured situations at school, do very often have poor organization skills, and helping them to develop some kind of organization in their lives makes things very much easier for them, as well as, of course, setting them up for a more successful adulthood and especially a more successful work life. Encouraging them to work at subjects that will be significant in their future career choices is another one. Very often, parents say, I would like my child to take up commerce, but I want them to drop maths. And I really don't know how that would work, because uh, dropping important subjects at a young age automatically closes doors for you uh, when you're older. So it's important to support them, even if it's difficult, to stick with subjects that will be important for them in the future. The next slide. And making advanced preparations for professional courses. And here I would like to point out that even something like, say, art, if you're planning to go to art school, there's a lot of preparation that is required, including in India, or at least in Maharashtra, doing the government art exams, because without that, you cannot go into an art college. Similarly, of course, uh, other more high profile careers are concerned, everybody knows what uh, that kind of preparation is. But it is important to start early and give enough time, especially for students who are not very academically minded, to make those, to prepare for those entrance exams, to find out well in advance what it's going to entail, and get going very early. But at the same time, inadequate preparations and the wrong subject choices do not necessarily derail students' plans. And this is again something that is not very well recognized here in India, where everybody is thinking in terms of art, science, commerce, uh, or IT. They Even if you do happen to take the wrong subjects, or you happen to drop subjects that are crucial for a course that you decide to take up later on, it's possible after the 12th to take even after you have got your certificate, after you finish your board exams, it's possible to take supplementary courses and get those added onto your certificate and your mark sheet. And there have been many cases in which students have done this. For instance, if they happen to take, in one case, a student who happened to take commerce and then decided that he wanted to do dentistry. So he just did a year more with the science courses and um, certi- uh, got his certificate for that, got his marks added to his mark sheet, and was able to apply to medical college. The next slide. So, what do we look out for, and what are the things that, what are the indicators that we can look out for? I know that when, especially children are in their mid-teens, students in 40, 13 to 18, those years are so stressed. Children are going through so many changes. They're growing up so fast. Um, Adolescence kicks in, hormones kick in, and board exams kick in all at the same time. So it can be a very, very stressful period. But there are certain markers that we can look out for and use as signposts to indicate what kind of future we should plan for. And if you could have the next slide, Marta, the next slide, please. Uh, the maintenance of strengths which have been noted in the school age period. And that is, as I said earlier, identify strengths, give children opportunities to explore what they find interesting, what they're good at, and especially look at whether they are able, whether there is consistency in this. Another is a high learning capacity. What is actually their learning capacity? And sometimes it may not be reflected in their marks, but it could be reflected in their talk, in the interest that they show in things that really interest them, in their ability to follow through on topics that or activities that interest them. That's also an indicator of the kind of capacity they have to work and where you need to build. A noticeable improvement uh, when kids get extra time or multiple choice examinations. A lot of children who do not do well in written exams do distinctively better in multiple choice tests. And that itself can be an indication of their capabilities, which don't get reflected in their marks normally. Next slide. A, a dedication when they're focused on any highly specialized area that interests them. Encourage them to work hard on the things that they really like, not not to take it very lightly. So whether it's sports and the arts or it's any other topic, encourage them to pursue it, and also give them opportunities to explore it further. Even if your child is good at sport, give them the opportunities, the coaching, the time off from studies if necessary to pursue that. If it's the arts, uh, encourage them not just with extra classes, but also visits to museums, to galleries, to exhibitions, participating in art activities of their choice. It is all these extra uh, efforts and the extra and building up that interest in these areas, which is really important and which I think really indicates how far the student will go in that area, whether they will be, say, average in that subject or in their chosen field, or whether they'll be really passionate, as somebody mentioned. Competence in writing, if the content is important and not using uh, and not just the not going by the grammar and spelling. Again, many people will tell me, but his marks in languages, or they're losing marks in spelling or grammar, because or even because of handwriting. But what is really important is the content of what they have written. And they may not get the marks in school, but if you encourage them to build those foundation skills, then they can definitely use it's going to stand them in good sense instead in achieving their goals. So, the next slide. Another this that which everybody talks about emotional intelligence, but what is emotional intelligence? It's exceptional empathy and feeling for others, being able to understand others, being able to put themselves in another person's place. And it is these social skills which can be exceedingly important in work life and in adult life in so many situations, which make you likable, which make you a great team player, which also ensure that you always have friends and family around you. The next slide. Oh, some of the qualities that um, it's emerging that the 21st century jobs really do need is big picture thinking, uh, a talent for high level conceptualization, coming up with original ideas, looking at things from a different perspective, as Neha mentioned, thinking out of the box. This is seriously what a lot of large corporations are looking for today. Not just, they don't just look at your academic record. And in many cases, that academic record may not be as important for them to consider as these qualities. Next slide. Um, Again, how innovative, how creative are your children? How are they good at this is again out of the box thinking, do they think laterally rather than logical thinking? Do they take a different viewpoint from other people? Or are they able to see aspects of a problem which other people are not able to see? Do they think of solutions rather than focusing on problems? Are they entrepreneurial and street smart? A lot of very bookish people may not be function very well in everyday life, but we all know people who are very good at managing their daily lives, and even go into careers which, say, like retail or a business, where you need to have instincts which are a little beyond, say, the text. And do they have good spatial orientation? In which case, they would be, which is very important, say, in sport or in art, architecture, or even structural engineering. Not everybody has good spatial orientation, but a lot of children who do, a lot of people who don't fit in very well in the school system do have it. Next slide. The next slide, please. Yeah. And as I said, it's usually people who come to our clinics asking, what career can we find? What can you suggest for my child? And the answer is the next slide. Of course, as I said, it's commonly accepted, that creative fields, art and design, fine art, theater, design, all these, even architecture, um, and or computers suit kids who don't do very well in school. But there's also engineering, and the next slide, please. Catering, merchandising, medicine, and law, management, in fact, anything at all. I don't think there is any career which is not suited uh, to a child just because they don't do well in school. If they have the passion for it, they'll be able to do it. And so, can we go to the last slide? The sky is truly the limit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kate, for the lovely presentation. There are a few questions
Yeah.
which people would like to know. One is, what is NIOS? Well, I'll answer that very fast.
I think
It's
you're the
National
expert there.
Institute of Open Schooling. It's a Delhi board. It's a parallel course for children who are not able to do the mainstream school. Okay, Kate, now to you. When should a child get an aptitude test done, and how effective are the results in helping them to choose a career?
That's a very good question, and it's a rather contentious question because I know that most of the time aptitude tests are needed at when the child is in the 10th in India, at least, because then they're making subject choices which will determine, how what field they will be working towards. I do believe that that's not necessarily the right time, and while it may help to choose subjects because they have to be chosen at that time, uh, an aptitude test a little later on, post 17, would really help them, because by then they are through with that adolescent period, and uh, they're more likely to be effective. The tests are more likely to be effective. I know that's not a very, very helpful answer, but again, it's partly our system which forces us to make choices at too young an age.
But I'll tell you one thing, with the new education policy coming
Yes,
in, and with
yes,
the skill development joining
yeah,
in from standard one onwards, children will have a great avenue of careers in front
yes.
of them. So let's hope that it's implemented as early as possible now. Okay, the next question is, Kate, this is from me. Uh, Dealing with parents of children with disabilities, many parents come and tell me, "Ma'am, my child is a dyslexic child, and how do you expect him to do all these things?" Well, I
Yes,
always tell them, I said, dyslexic children need to be challenged.
that's right.
So, but they are not satisfied. So, if you as a parent can
Yes.
convince them,
Yes, I've often been asked this question myself, or very often we have parents who say, well, my daughter's dyslexic, so she can't do maths or she can't do Hindi, or she can't do whatever. But I hate the word can't. I do believe these kids can do anything they want, or they need to. Sometimes they don't want to, but they need to.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough on them. It's certainly much tougher for them than for other kids. But with the right kind of inputs, the right kind of support, and provided they have built a good foundation right from the start. Um, I really
True.
truly believe, and I have seen
Yeah.
that they are
Yes.
capable of anything. We have kids who come to us who have failed several times and yet have
Yet he
passed
is able to.
board exams with 90s. So it's a question of how you approach it.
Yeah. There's another question. How do I find a special tutor who can help improve reading and writing?
Depends on where you are. One of the most unfortunate things is that reading, teachers are not trained to teach reading. Your mainstream teachers are not trained to teach reading. This is the most unfortunate fact. So you do need a special educator who has some training in teaching reading. It is a skill, and which teachers can be trained in. Uh, there are very specialized programs for children who have difficulty in learning to read, including kids with severe dyslexia. And partly it is also a question of finding the right program. So look for a special educator with a background in learning disability, and they would be able to teach reading scientifically.
Okay. There's one thing, comment on the need of special education and the need for ensuring that children continue in the mainstream schools.
Yeah. Um, very often, like things, the struggle to cope with school can seem very, very hard. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Sometimes, even as a parent, you feel, is this worth it? If my child were in a special school, things would be so much easier. But I think we need to remember two things, that life is mainstream. Uh, in the future, they're going to have to compete with everybody else and cope with life as it comes. And the best preparation for that is a mainstream school. They also they learn a lot from their peers. And so it's very important that if they are in a very enriching, nurturing environment, which gives them the right stimulus, they are going to learn so much more than they would in a very protected environment. And I really passionately believe this. But having said that, there are situations in which a special school or some kind of sheltered situation would be more appropriate, especially for a child who has had very traumatic experiences or is going through a bad patch. It doesn't mean that once they're out of the mainstream situation, they can never go back. But it's uh, it's something that needs to be monitored. There have been times where that I have known of parents who feel that shifting their child out of the mainstream and into a special school was a big mistake, because after a year or two, the child was just not stimulated enough. This is especially true of dyslexic
Yeah. Uh, how can we reduce the dropout rates?
children. I
Difficult.
think by just having schools which are more supportive of diversity. As
Right.
long as we have schools which drive children to um, just achieve in terms of marks and nothing else, uh, we're going to have kids who are dropping out.
I think with the new education policy again,
Again, yes,
critical thinking, logical thinking coming
yes,
in and stopping with the rote learners,
yeah,
things will
will
improve.
improve. I hope so. I definitely hope so.
Yeah.
On paper, it sounds
On
wonderful.
paper, it is excellent.
Yes.
How far it's going to work, we do not know. Okay, I think the last one is, how is remediation different than giving tuitions?
Remediation is, and tuitions are chalk and cheese. Uh, remediation is based on filling in the gaps for children who have deficits in their learning profiles. So it's important that we first assess where the child is and start from there. Not so if a child is reading at a fourth standard level but happens to be in the eighth standard, we don't just try to make them catch up to the eighth. We start with giving them a firm foundation right from the beginning. And that I think is the main this. The
Right.
other thing is that remediation is based on metacognition. It's learning how to learn rather than it's not information oriented. It's not curriculum oriented. So if you say, I want my child to get some remedial education, and then you go to the clinic with a textbook and say he has an economics exam tomorrow, so please train him for that, it doesn't work that way.
I would
That's the
say
job of
it's
the
a
tuition
therapy.
teacher.
I would say it's a
Sorry?
learning therapy.
Yeah, yeah.
The way we have physiotherapy, the way we have speech
Hmm.
therapy, this is a therapy that is required
Yes,
to be done with children with disabilities.
yeah. And there is a lot of research now to show that it actually creates changes in the brain.
Yes, of course it changes.
So we can measure that today
Yes.
with,
And we as educationists,
yeah,
we see it.
yes.
We definitely see the improvement.
No, but you also get that proof with MRIs.
Yes, yes.
So there's a lot of research to show that.
Where does one can do the aptitude test?
There are lots of clinics which do it. Also, there are online services which offer the same. So, but any kind of any psychologist's clinic or educational clinic will offer an aptitude test.
Right. And do we give more importance to a child's interest or his or her aptitude while making a career choice?
Uh, why would you say that but they wouldn't be interested in what they have an aptitude for? When you do something that you're really good at, it gives you a lot of satisfaction. It gives you a lot of self confidence, and it maintains motivation. So uh, I don't think kids would, I don't think you can say he has an aptitude for something but no interest in. Uh,
True. Okay, thank you, Kate. So far, we have done very well.
yeah.
Uh, any more queries if there are, or otherwise, I conclude. Can you please suggest the online options for aptitude test?
This is not my field at all. Uh, I do know that there are several, and it would be advisable to surf and
So,
find out, but also check out, how good they are, because not all of them are equally effective.
true. Okay, to end the session, I would say every child has a different learning style and pace. Each child is unique, not only capable of learning, but also capable of succeeding.
Yes,
I would like to
absolutely.
end the session here. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Gio Parsi. Thank you,
And thank
Parazu,
you. Thank you.
for
Thank you
this
so
lovely
much.
Yeah.
session.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
Shamla,
and
Martha,
gracing.
everybody.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and gracing this occasion. It was a real wonderful exercise and points to ponder, think over and then take on from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to mention one thing is that um, I'm sorry, but recognizing the child for their performance, like you said, is a
Yes.
great confidence builder.
Oh, yes.
So please keep it on. Your child is capable of anything and everything. It may not be in sync with what we think, but definitely it is something that they are interested in doing.
Yes.
So let them move on. Thank you so much, Rukshana, for all your inputs, and Kate, definitely for a fantastic session. Thank you. Stay
Thank you
safe.
very
Thank
much.
you for having
Good
us.
night, viewers.